Hello and welcome to this example session. In this film, we're going to explore how to use the BUAH collection to discuss artworks and deliver a practical activity. Throughout this film, I'll reference resources which you can find online. They're great for building your confidence and also give you loads more artworks to work with. The theme I've chosen to talk about today is the city to the sea, and this is a great one to start with. It covers natural scenes, the urban and built environment, seascapes, and it's also quite traditional. As always, there's more information on the online resources, and there's an activity sheet that accompanies this activity. So I've given more tips and advice on how to run this session on there. So we're going to be printing scenes inspired by our painting and our theme, the city to the sea. This is a great activity because the outcome always looks impressive, and there's that lovely moment where you reveal what you've printed when you take the paper off. So let's remind ourselves how I've used the online resources to get ready for this session. I've printed off copies of the picture so that everyone's got one in front of them, and that's got the title and the artist's name on there too. I'm just going to run through all the materials that we're going to use in this activity. So the first thing we'll need is called a styrofoam plate, and all that really means is that the thing that we make our marks onto is made of styrofoam. That's called our plate, and it's the same material as you'd get on pizza bases. So you can ask your team to all eat lots of pizza for a week and collect them up, or you can just buy them because they're quite cheap. Next up we have rollers. I bought the rollers because they make everything so much easier and they make your final print look much better. They weren't expensive at all, and I've provided a list of suppliers in the online resources so you can find out where to get those from there. You'll need a sharp pencil or a biro. If you use a biro, it might draw the line as well while you're making your design, which is quite useful, but otherwise a sharp pencil will make enough of an indent in your plate to produce a print. And for this you'll need acrylic paint. It needs to be something that's fairly thick, not really sticky, but just thick enough to roll out. Alongside this you also want some paper and some pens to jot ideas down or sketch out your design. And in terms of setting up for this activity, obviously we're using paint, so that can get messy. So you could use some plastic tablecloths so that you don't have to scrub the tables down afterwards. I would use aprons for this one to protect clothes. Sleeves are the most likely bit to get paint on them. A good technique for this is to wrap cling film or foil around the sleeves, just to keep everything together. Also gloves. Some people don't like getting paint on their hands, so it's good to have gloves on standby. Also think of somewhere to put the wet prints. So they don't take very long to dry, but they will need to rest somewhere. An example of how I might start the session would be to say, good morning everyone. Thanks very much for joining me. Today we're going to look at an artwork from the BUAH Gallery and Museum collection, and it's called Shtetl by Hanna Kowalska. So I like to start off with just about a minute's worth of close looking at the artwork. I often start just by asking people if they like it or not. You may want to jot down little ideas as you go along that come up and then come back to them at a later point. So for example, someone might be just about to tell you about a lovely place they went to on holiday for many years and they get interrupted. We're working in a group, that happens, but you want to hold on to that for them and then come back to it at a useful point in your session. You may well know these little things about the people you care for anyway, so draw on that knowledge and experience. You want to get people talking, so give those prompts where you can. You'll need support for this one, so ideally you'd have another staff member with you, if not two. We've got all our materials ready. As always, the trickiest bit of this whole process is deciding what to print, so what your drawing will be on the plate. The best way to do this is to demonstrate. I've done this activity a few times, and the place I always pick is Devon, and that's because I've got a really strong memory of it in my mind. So we used to go there on family holidays. It was a very long journey, and just as we were approaching, my dad would say, "Who can see the sea?" and we'd get all excited. And the image I have in my mind is of the coast sweeping round, the waves coming in, the sand dunes and the fields in the background. So there's lots for me to draw on there. It creates quite a basic image actually. It's very symbolic of what those things are, but that doesn't matter. And I've shared that story in the process. So really, that's a good way of getting around everyone's print needing to look the same or needing to look very good, because everybody's story is totally different. Alternatively, we could go back to the picture. At first glance, this looks like a quaint scene of very traditional rural village life. It's painted in this simple style, the colours are warm and pleasing, and we can pick out details, so there's lots to get the discussion started. We would refer to this as a naive style, so you might have people saying that it looks like it's been painted by a child or that it's very simple. There's lots of nice pinks and greens and a light blue sky in this piece. They're quite happy, cheery colours. Everything's coming into a sharp point at the top of the piece, so it's quite interesting to discuss how this has all been laid out and the composition of it. The simpler the better with these designs. No sketchy lines, straight lines work best, and just make sure you score it nice and deep into the styrofoam so you get a nice clear print. Also, if you do your print and it's not coming out clearly enough, you can score deeper into those lines so you can rework it after you've done your first print and carry on doing that. Flag up too that this is a negative print, and that means that the lines you're drawing will come out white, but the background and the rest of your print will come out in colour. Any writing will also come out back to front, so you'll need to write that backwards on your plate before you do your print. So the really fun bit of this activity is inking up the roller and then rolling onto your plate before then making your print on the paper. You've got to be bold when you put your plate down to the paper. Don't smudge it around or you'll get a smudgy print. Once it's on the paper, you want to use a dry roller to go over the back of it, and that will give you a really nice even print on the paper. You want to be able to maximise your time and minimise clearing up too. So if you just have 2 rollers and 2 trays of paint going, then that means you can kind of stagger how you're working with people. So only 2 people can be printing at one time and the rest of the group are working on their plates. Remember, it's totally fine for people to have to slow down what they're doing a little bit, see what else is happening in the group, watch someone else do their print before they do theirs. It's nice to learn from each other like that. And it all comes down to that moment when you reveal your print. You take the plate off the paper and there is your print. And once you've mastered that print, you can do as many as you like from that plate, or you can make another one, or perhaps you want to paint in different bits of colour on your original print and match them up. Ideally, we want to end with a roundup of everyone's work from the session. Sometimes people leave early, they're happy with what they've done, that's fine, but we like to celebrate everyone's work in the session. So you might want to go around the group, or you might want to just ask who'd like to show their work at the end, and that's a nice way to draw the session to a close. So as you draw your session to a close, just be really clear about what's going to happen with the works that people have made. If anyone's anxious about finishing something off, whether there'll be the opportunity to do that, or whether they'll have to wait until the next session. Otherwise, be clear, no, that was today's session and we're going to be moving on to something else next time. This activity isn't without some mess, so if people want to, then encourage them to help you clear up, give clear tasks and thank people for their help. It's all part of being an artist. I've always found this to be a really popular activity across a whole range of ages and groups. So just remember, it should be fun. The outcome of the print isn't really what it's about the process. There aren't any rules about how this should look, so encourage experimentation. Notice when people are giving it a go. I like to pick a favourite piece of someone's work. Hanna Kowalska's shtetl is just one of the works in the theme City to the Sea, and there's lots of other themes and artworks for the online resources. So have fun, get together, make it a social event, and get creative.